Hello. So the TOG II has been in the game for a very long time, and it is, I guess, it is some people's favorite. It's more like a mascot, other than favorite, because you won't see. It's really hard to find people with thousands of battles in it. It is the only tank in the game that is nearly impossible to manage an average damage above your own L points. 1400 L points, it's just a lot for a tier 6. It's more than most tier 7s get. If we check damage per game horse, we can see that there is one player with 335 battles that has more average damage than his own L points on the TOG II. And I don't know, maybe just got lucky, because most players and such great players such as Morgoth's, which has almost 200, managed almost 200 games, only managed 1350, and myself, I think I have also around 1350. So it's really hard to go above your own L points in damage, and usually one of the ways you can tell you are doing good in a given vehicle is that if you're doing your own L points in damage plus a few shots. But the TOG II, the only thing it has going for it's the L points, because everything else, it's just subpar in relation to the tier. And you can't really carry games with L points. In no situation when playing this game you see a TOG II on the enemy team and you see that as a problem. On the contrary, you see that as a great opportunity to deal a lot of damage. I don't exactly understand why the TOG II was introduced as a tier 6 and not as a tier 5, but it might have to do with the age of development, the time of the year of development, which is more or less the same as the rest of the tier 6 avies. But for a gameplay point of view, and this is a tank with special matchmaking, for a gameplay point of view, that's I think it wasn't a good choice. I think people would enjoy TOG II, would have a lot more fun with it if it was introduced as a tier 5. Not with 1400 L points, of course, but maybe 1000 and 100, for example, but one tier lower, and maybe even with still special matchmaking, or maybe not, I don't know. But the thing is, if it was a tier 5, its armor would work more often, because a tier 5 meets the same lower tiers as a tier 6. A tier 6 meets tier 5 and tier 4, a tier 5 meets only tier 4. And it's when but as a tier 5 you will be meeting tier 4s more often than as a tier 6. And against tier 4, at least some of them you will have a better chance of bouncing a few shots. At least on the turret you have some armor, so at least you would as being such a slow tank, you would actually bounce a few shots, and your gun, which is a pretty good gun from a point of view of penetration, and even in damage, especially if it was a tier 5, it would work really well. You would still be outplayed most of the time because you are so slow. It's the slowest of all the avies. If I compare it to the second slowest avy, which is the OI, it's still slower, and it has worse terrain resistance, because even on the terrain resistance it could be better, so that it had a better chance of angling, etc. But even in that, it's at a disadvantage. So the TOG II as at tier 6 suffers from, for example, the high explosive shells from a KV2. Its frontal armor is at its lowest, 76, because there's no angling in that part. It's 76 all around, but with some angling it's a bit more effective. But through the front, in that area, there's no angling whatsoever. And being a tier 6, you're gonna meet other tier 6s quite often. The OI Wargaming, because it's not Russian, only gives it 75mm of penetration. But the KV2, which is Russian, gets 86 of millimeters of penetration with 152, which is more penetration than pretty much every other gun in the game of 152 millimeters of derp guns, you know, like for example Sheridan. For me this doesn't make any sense, but if you check the Sheridan, which has a 150 millimeter gun, 152, it's a derp by all respects, you can see that it has an high explosive, but it only penetrates 76, and if you want to penetrate more, you need the premium high explosive, and it penetrates 85, which is 1mm lower than the tier 6 KV2 penetrates with regular high explosive. So a tier 6 heavy tank with a derp penetrates 1mm more with regular HE than a tier 10 tank with a very similar derp, you know, in a certain way, thus using gold ammo. You actually need to use a gold shell, a premium shell, in order to penetrate almost the same, and you still penetrate lower. Anyway, so the TOG II gets penetrated through the front, can be penetrated through the front by the egg explosive shell of a KV2, which means that's 1400 L points. You take 900 points of damage, and there they go. There they go, all of those L points very easily. And you might even be set on fire. That's a one-shot. So it's a great advantage for a KV2 to be going up against a TOG II. It's a lot of damage to farm. The other than the TOG II, the only tank that has a low level of armor is the M6, but the M6 doesn't get penetrated by explosive through the front. And the M6, it's really fast. It has a pretty good power to weight ratio for heavy, so it's actually one of the better tier 6 heavy tanks. So why is it TOG II a tier 6 and not a tier 5? Because it has a 17-pounder gun? I don't think it is well placed as a tier 6, and if it was a tier 5, anyone playing it would have a lot more fun. So a tier 6, a TOG II at tier 6, it's just bullshit.